In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to set up self-hosted GitHub runners on an AWS EC2 autoscaling group. This process will allow us to manage and scale our GitHub runners efficiently by leveraging AWS's robust infrastructure. Let's begin with creating an IAM role. We'll start by logging into the AWS console and navigating to the IAM section. Once you're there, you'll need to create a new IAM role. This role should have several specific policies attached to it. You'll want to include the Amazon managed instance core policy, which allows for EC2 instance management via AWS Systems Manager. Another crucial policy is the CloudWatch Agent Server policy, which facilitates monitoring and logging through CloudWatch. Depending on your deployment needs, you might also need to add permissions related to ECR, EKS, or S3, among others. Moving on to the EC2 launch template. This step involves installing all necessary packages along with the GitHub runner automatically. Open the EC2 console to create a new launch template. Here you can include a user data script that automates the setup process. Start with updating your package lists and installing necessary utilities like curl, JQ, and unzip. Then, create a directory specifically for the GitHub runner files. Download them and extract the contents inside. You'll also need to generate a GitHub registration token. Make sure to replace placeholders in the user data script with actual values, like your GitHub personal access token and your repository information. With these details handy, configure the runner to connect to your GitHub repository and start the runner service. Now, let's create an autoscaling group, or ASG. Back in the AWS console, navigate to the autoscaling section. Using the previously created launch template, set up an autoscaling group. For automation with tools like Terraform, you'll construct an ASG resource block. Here, define parameters such as the desired capacity, which is how many instances you want running at a given time. Also, specify the minimum and maximum size to control scaling limits. Additionally, make sure to specify the VPC subnets where your EC2 instances will reside. The next step is to configure your GitHub self-hosted runners in the GitHub interface. Depending on whether you're setting this up for a specific repository or across an entire organization, go to either the repository or organizational settings. Navigate to Actions and then Runners or Runner Groups. This setup allows GitHub to recognize and utilize your AWS runners correctly during workflows. Finally, let's use these runners in GitHub Actions. You'll define a simple action workflow in your repository with a YAML file. This workflow triggers on certain events, like a push to the main branch. Under Jobs, ensure your workflow specifies running on a self-hosted runner labeled as EC2. Include steps that check out your repository and additional actions or scripts your builds need to run. By following these steps, you now have a robust and scalable setup for handling GitHub Actions with AWS EC2 autoscaling. Happy building and automating with your new GitHub runners.